Yo, what's up? That going fast? What about gothic aesthetics? Have you ever wondered what would happen if kart racing was a combat sport? Well, have I got the game for you. Introducing Nightmare Kart, a PSX-style indie arcade kart racer with absolutely no association with FromSoft's Bloodborne. God, I love indie games. Nightmare Kart asks the all-important question: what if Mario Kart had gun? Well, you end up with this gloriously crunchy-looking mix of speed and violence with a gothic, legally distinct theming. Very cool. But wait, hold on. Where did this thing even come from? Well, Nightmare Kart was developed by Lilith Walther. You might know her from... A couple years ago, she released Bloodborne PSX, a fan demake of hit, only released on PS4 game, Bloodborne. Of course, the next logical step was to make the most infamous Soulsborne meme into a real game, and thus, Bloodborne Kart was born. And thus, Nightmare Kart was born. The first thing you'll notice is the great pains taken to faithfully emulate the visual look and feel of PSX-era games. Everything from the low-poly models to the wonderfully crunchy textures to emulating that weird little model jitter the OG PlayStation was so well known for, to even including a built-in CRT filter as well as countless graphical menu options I can't pretend to understand. The attention to detail is stupendous. So let's not waste any more time and see that art direction in action. But first, why not saw cleave that like button if you end up enjoying the video? And while you're at it, try perfect pairing the subscribe button too. God, why did I... Anyways, let's carve our way into this thing. Nightmare Kart has two main game modes. Free mode, where you can pick any stage to play through with any of the unlocked racers, weapons, and karts, and the real meat of the game, campaign mode. This intersplices exposition and cutscenes between various racing and battle stages. Now, I've never had the chance to play Bloodborne, not that it should matter, this is an entirely original, legally distinct property after all, but I'll assume that, given what I've had the chance to learn from my Aussie friend, this game is very successful in conveying the story it's trying to tell. Nightmare Kart has three stage types: races, battles, and special. Racers are exactly what you'd think. Cutthroat, high-speed contests of violence and skill where racers make laps around courses aiming for first. Battles are reminiscent of Mario Kart's battle mode, but substantially more aggressive. And finally, special stages are usually reserved for boss fights or other story events and center around a unique mechanic or objective, like chasing this guy around a library. Now, despite each stage style having a different objective, they all use the same driving mechanics. Accelerate goes forward, brake stops, then reverses, steer left and right, and press the drift button to drift and do tricks while jumping. Pretty straightforward. Where it gets interesting is accelerating and braking to power brake. Now, this doesn't sound very unique. Most racing games let you do this in some way or form, and you could probably do it with your car too, though I don't recommend it. But I feel it's important to draw attention to it because of how heavily it's utilized during the actual gameplay. While power braking rarely comes up during actual races, where it shines is during battle stages. Speaking of which, let's talk combat. Nightmare Kart is one of the most aggressive kart racers I've ever played. The entire gameplay is centered on attacking everything and everyone in sight. Your top speed is determined by how many blood droplets you have, and you get these by either running over smaller enemies with your vehicle, blasting larger enemies and racers, or getting the blood droplet item from item sparkles. Now, contrary to what these sentences might imply, the blood droplet is actually the odd item out. Pretty much everything you can get out of these item sparkles is a weapon. We're talking the Hunter pistol, the lever-action shotgun, some crazy melee weapon, or whatever the hell this thing is. In another substantial deviation from most other kart racers, you and all your opponents have a health bar which can be depleted by any number of these different weapons. And once it hits zero... Luckily, in a legally distinct game design decision, you leave behind this marker that restores all your droplets when you drive over it. All of this makes for a very unique approach to both racing and battle that seamlessly blends the two modes together. This is literally true in the Father Gregory encounter. Another cool deviation: this game doesn't have a dedicated boost item. Instead, you have a boost gauge that fills whenever you drift, trick, or pick up the ether crystal item. At almost any time, you can hit the boost button for a short burst of speed. This encourages you to drift and trick as often as you can to keep your boost meter high, especially since you can boost out of most spinouts. Pretty much everything in this game is encouraging you to try and go as fast as possible at all times. Hell, even the melee weapon launches you forward at the nearest target. Well, and there's also this move. All of this comes together to form a familiar feeling yet unique racing experience across a wide variety of courses, absolutely oozing in faux nostalgic charm. And to top it all off, The game boasts a wonderfully arcadey soundtrack that clashes against the atmosphere in just the most perfect way. Alright, I'm going to segue into my critique section right here. I want to preface by saying I really enjoyed the game, and I think it's in a fantastic state right now. These are intended to be constructive, and I'll try to offer some sort of solution to whatever issue I have. That said, I'm not a game dev, and these are very much armchair thoughts and critiques, so please take them with however many grains of salt you think best. Alright, here goes. While the game really wants you to be going as fast as possible all the time, I don't think some of the tracks facilitate that. A few of these courses feel like the cornering is way too tight and doesn't offer enough room to get a proper drift going. Now, I was sight reading all of the tracks while playing, but even on the third lap after I'd had a chance to kind of learn the course, I ran into quite a few turns where my speed and the tight turns led to me slamming into the outside wall. There are small instances of this sprinkled throughout the courses, but I think the biggest offenders are this weird U-shape in Angel Graveyard, this thing at the end of Miralodian Sewer Circuit, and the halfway point in the Forbidden Forest. The least invasive adjustment I could think could be to increase how much your steering can influence the angle of the drift, allowing for looser or more aggressive angles while turning. Also, while the sharp turns are a bit more noticeable, there were some wider turns that I wish I could have maintained my drift through, specifically on Great Clock Tower and Pocket Dream Course. Another speed-related issue, there are these small pieces of extra terrain and clutter sprinkled around the tracks that really help sell the atmosphere the game is trying to go for, and they do look really cool. However, there were more than a few times where I would hit a rock or a coffin or something at just the wrong angle, you'd end up stuck on top of the object. Usually you can like wiggle or boost your way out of these, but there was at least one situation where I ended up high-centered on something and was forced to just end the race. I'm not a modeler or level designer, so again, I don't know the best way to approach fixing this, but from the little bit I know, maybe the approach is to make the angle of the hitbox just a little bit more aggressive to push the player off, or maybe even make it just a little bit taller so there's not even a chance they get on it to begin with. To be honest, I assume it's probably already like this and I'm just kind of making weird assumptions, but I'm just trying to offer any kind of solution instead of just blindly criticizing. My final critique could just be a skill issue. I'll take that L if that's the case, but to specifically concern some of the boss encounters. I feel like the terrain and design of the Forest Arena makes the fight way harder than it needs to be. A lot of the turns required to get around obstacles and onto jump ramps are super tight and drifting onto them is really tough. Additionally, power braking doesn't always work and kind of tends to end up with you overshooting and getting blasted by an enemy. There are also a ton of those little rocks around that you can get stuck on, and while I understand that the encounter is a redesign of the Shadows of Yharnam boss fight from the old version of the game, I kind of feel like the 3-on-1 in this arena doesn't work out super well. It's not that the encounter is impossible or anything, clearly I've finished it myself, it's just much harder than anything else in the game. I totally get choosing to leave the higher difficulty for the encounter as it is, but maybe there could be like an opportunity for struggling players to choose to summon a cooperator for the fight to be a little bit easier. Just a thought. A quick editing thing. It's also possible for Father Gregory to get stuck behind the fog gate. I just wanted to bring that up before I forgot. Finally, and spoilers for Nightmare Kart's final boss in 3, 2, 1. During the first phase of the fight against Miralodia, I found the melee platforming to be a little inconsistent. Sometimes I would easily target and fly to enemies, but other times it would send me off in an odd angle or not give me enough distance and I just kind of plummet and die. I'm not really sure how to approach this since it's entirely dependent on how the melee weapon is programmed and it isn't an issue anywhere else. I just thought I'd voice my experience with this section. With that all being said, these critiques are tiny parts of a game that is excellent overall. Clearly, an immense amount of thought, time, and care has been put into each character and stage in order to make Nightmare Kart the most enjoyable experience it can be. So, if you have a free hour or two, I'd highly recommend checking out Nightmare Kart on Steam or the dev's itch.io page. There's a link to that one in the description. It's a short, fun, and best of all, completely free experience. So, go ahead, race into the nightmare. Also, some very cool news. Lilith just announced that Nightmare Kart is getting an expansion, The Old Karts. It's going to have a bunch of new characters, weapons, stages, and probably a campaign that is very legally distinct. I'll have the trailer linked in the description as well and in the card, so go check that out and give her your support. Look at that! We've finally reached the finish line. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and click subscribe to stay up to date on whatever I release next. And if you really liked the video, why not share it with your friends? Maybe drop it in a Discord channel or something, as long as it doesn't get you banned or something, you know. I'm also on Blue Sky. I post my art there for any videos, and also offer up whatever was on my mind. Not the best takes, but they're there. Anyways, more shorter videos in the works, but also a bigger project on the horizon. I just kind of need to finish hunting it down. That's all from me. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.